Hello. Now we're live. Full disclosure, I was sitting here for about 5 minutes, just full on talking to myself. And I remember thinking, oh, no one's joining yet, just casually as I'm loading media files. And I'm going and I'm talking. And I didn't hit live. I wasn't live. I was just talking to myself. So I'm just going to categorize that as practice. That's what I'm going to do. So I practiced a little bit before going live. Hello, and thank you for joining. I'm going to start in just a minute. How's everyone's Tuesday? It's been the craziest news. Hello, DP Mart. Thank you for joining. I'm glad you're here. All right, I'm just loading a few more media files. Let's see. What's the other one that I wanted? Oh, yes. Okay. Hope you're doing well, Sarah. Thank you so much. I'm going to turn red if I say that word. The bastard of America. When I cuss in front of a lot of people and I'm actually thinking about it, I will turn bright red. Sergio, hi from Brazil. Hi, Sergio. Thank you so much for joining. Let's just recap a few of the things. I know there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on in politics, but I can't not dive into this Titanic story a little bit because it is very tragic. It's very scary. I think all of us had a few new fears unlocked recently, but it's just wild. It's one of the wildest stories I have ever heard of. And this is coming right off the cusp of the 8-foot tall aliens. And I know a lot of these things happen and we're always like, this is a distraction. I don't think this submarine story is a distraction. Well, it's a submersive. I don't even think it is a submarine. I don't think this one is a distraction so much. I think this was actually just a bunch of just extremely wealthy people doing something pretty wild. And we're going to talk about it because, I actually have a news clip from, it was like a special they did. I don't even think it was that long ago. And they did like a whole little special on this submersive. So we're going to look into that. And then who was on the submersive. That's pretty interesting as well. But this alien story, when I first heard it, I was like, yeah, that's total. I didn't even waste any time thinking about it, talking about it, just sort of scrolled by it online. And I heard the audio tape, the 911. Good morning, afternoon, and good evening. Hi, Leroy. So I listened to the audio of the 911 call. Actually, let me see if I can pull it up. And it sounded legit. The video footage from the police cam where it looks like something fell in the person's backyard. I mean, it all looks legit. It's just, it always comes at a strange time and you always have questions, right? But what got pretty weird recently, this kind of took another little turn. There was one little more layer put on it. And it was this news story that came out and it essentially said that they set up surveillance cameras all around the house to survey the lawn or the backyard where they are. Now, I was listening to Dan Bongino earlier this morning, who I really like him. Hello! I was listening to Dan Bongino earlier this morning, who I really like. I respect his opinion a lot. And he's a pretty solid guy, but he used to work in enforcement and still has a lot of friends in enforcement. And was saying, I've never heard of police just putting surveillance cameras in the back of someone's house. I've just never heard of that for many different reasons. So I wonder who got the police to put the surveillance cameras in the backyard and why. I just think that just took a little interesting turn that made maybe a little antenna over here, just one, not both. And it just like half mast, not all the way. It just caused one little antenna, one little eyebrow to be like, just need to keep an eye on that in the background. So that's how I feel. But that's how we had, let's see, Chinese spy balloons, 8-foot aliens, and missing submarines. I do want to say, I actually super a little creepy. No, this is very sad. This is very tragic. I think at this point, I don't know how much longer. If they're still here, if they're still here, if the craft did not implode. Okay, so we'll get into that. I have a news clip for you. I have to load it all over again. Oh, let me get you this clip. I was loading when I got on here. So I have a news clip for you from an expert saying what he thinks might have happened. Sorry, I think I screen recorded this, so you might see a part of my.
What could possibly have happened?
Oh, so first, let's update the story. So this submersive, sort of like, you know how Jeff Bezos went to, if you have enough money, you can take a trip to outer space. That's essentially what this is, but in the ocean. If you have enough money, you can take this sort of, it's like tourism. It's extremely expensive tourism. You can take this little tourist voyage down to the Titanic and go see the Titanic. And by the way, the water pressure, actually, he's going to get into that. So I'll let him say that. So that's essentially what happened. There were two crew members, 3 passengers. Each passenger paid $250,000 to be on this, what they're actually calling a submersive. They're saying this can't even qualify as a submarine. It's a submersive. They paid $250,000 to take this thing all the way down to the Titanic and see the Titanic. And just a few hours after submerging into the water, right around where the Titanic is where they completely lost contact. And this was Sunday afternoon, they lost contact. There is still no contact. The vessel, I guess you would call it, the submersive, it only has 96 hours of breathable oxygen for all 5 people that are on board. So if it submerged Sunday afternoon, I don't know where that would put it right now. But this is, here, let's listen to what he has to say. This is, again, sorry for the screen recording. I did it really quickly.
What could possibly have happened?
Worst situation is, something happened to the hull, and our fear is that around 200 meters.
And is there anything that the U.S. Navy can?
Now, that's just the theory. Nobody knows. It could be anywhere. And someone just said it just drifted away. Well, that's the issue too. And that's why this search and rescue, or hopefully not search and recovery, or if they can even recover anything. That's why it's so hard, because it could be 2 different things. They could be looking for something that's at the bottom of the ocean, or they could be looking for something that's just drifting on the water. Imagine. They have no idea. They just don't have contact. He's saying what he thinks might have happened, because remember, they lost contact around right where the wreckage is. So they were right around. So some people have speculated maybe it got stuck in the wreckage and it's just stuck. It can't go anywhere. And he's speculating that he thinks it might have imploded. And basically what that happens is you're just instantly gone. The water pressure is so intense. And I think he talks about that, or the pressure down there.
Do right now?
No. I mean, I don't see anything that can happen at this point. I mean, I'm trying.
Here, I'll start it over.
Could possibly have happened?
Worst situation is, something happened to the hull, and our fear is that, it imploded at around 3,200 meters.
And is there anything that the U.S. Navy can do right now?
No. I mean, I don't see anything that can happen at this point. I mean, I'm trying to be, somewhat cautious and, don't want to basically be the naysayer of what's going on. But when you're talking 6,000 pounds per square inch, it is a dangerous environment. More people have been to outer space than to this depth of the ocean.
Isn't that crazy?
And when you're diving in these,
it's so crazy to think that more people have been to outer space than the depths that they are going into in the ocean. That's how just unbelievably, I can't find a word that actually does it justice. I was going to say rough. I don't know how you would describe that, but the conditions down there, not good for humans.
these situations, you have to cross your T's, dot your I's. You have to do everything perfect and by the book. And tourists in a new sub that was just created over the last years, it's not looking good, Jesse.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us in this tender time, and we're going to be praying for everybody on that sub. Thanks, Jay.
Thank you.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so now that we kind of know what happened, we kind of know how dire the situation is. I'm going to show you this clip. I think some of you might have seen it that was going around online. This was an actual news special that I believe was just a few months ago. It wasn't that long ago, and you heard him. The ship was built just a few years ago. So at most, it's a few years old, but I think it actually is a few months old. So this was a special they did on, you're going to see the guy who, he is the CEO of this company that built, did I call it a ship? A submersive? He's the CEO of the company that built the submersive. He is also one of the individuals that is in it right now. And you'll see him.
Certified by any regulatory.
It's not this guy. It's the other guy that you'll see. But this is where they're talking about this submersive. So this is what these individuals are in and what they paid to go in to go see the Titanic.
An experimental submersible vessel that has not been approved or certified by any regulatory body and could result in physical injury, disability, emotional trauma, or death. Where do I sign?
Eugh.
Oh,
There it
take the
is.
shoes off. That's customary.
Okay. Wow.
Look how small.
Inside.
Just look how small that is. And want to know something I was surprised about? I was really surprised because I don't know why, but in my head, I'm imagining something like a big window or some kind of big glass paneling that you can see through to actually see the wreckage in front of you. But it doesn't appear that there's any sort of window or anything like that. Now, obviously, that would have to be an extra super duper heavy duty glass. But no, it looks like it's video monitors that you're essentially just watching a video monitor that's videoing from outside. Unless I'm wrong, but I haven't seen anything that resembles an actual window where you can actually see the wreckage through, not on a screen.
The sub has about as much room as a minivan.
So this is not your grandfather's submersible. We only have one button. That's it. It should be like an elevator. It shouldn't take a lot of skill.
The Titan is the only
I will say he said that for a reason. And I did see someone who has a little bit of knowledge in this area say that and a lot of people kind of joked on him for that, and I get it. But I've heard from people with knowledge in this area, you can correct me if you have knowledge in this area, but it actually is good and that type of thing to have just extremely sensitive or extremely simple controls. I have heard that. Although this does feel a bit much.
person sub in the world that can reach Titanic depths, 2.4 miles below the sea. It's also the only one with a toilet. Sort of. And yet, I couldn't help noticing how many pieces of this sub seemed improvised.
we can use these off-the-shelf components. I got these from Camper World. We run the whole thing with this game controller.
Come on! It seems like.
Yeah, I don't know why it doesn't have a GPS. I don't know if there's a reason for that we're not aware of, but I don't know why you wouldn't have a tracker. Well, I guess they did have a tracker on it. They lost track of it, or they lost signal from it. It stopped pinging. There might be more information. I have an article up right here from the Daily Mail. That's what it looks like, creepily enough. A giant coffin. Ugh. What am I doing here? Okay. A game controller. Okay, so here's two articles right here. One is going to tell us how, all right. Lost for 3 days in a freezing 22-foot tube at the bottom of the ocean, the missing Titanic explorers' chances of rescue appeared wretched tonight. If they are still alive, the terrifying reality is that their best hope is to repeatedly bang on the hull in the dark and scream for help. In the ocean, 2.5 miles above, on the choppy surface of, oops, sorry, my leg is falling asleep. I decided to sit on my floor tonight. 2.5 miles above, on the choppy surface of the Atlantic, sophisticated sonar buoys are bobbing around, listening for any signs of life in the murky depths. Oh, okay. They are a part of a massive rescue operation launched on Sunday night that was ramped up yesterday with aircraft and ships scouring the Atlantic. State-of-the-art underwater drones are also being deployed in the desperate hunt for the waters where the cursed Titanic sunk 111 years ago. But as experts warned that conditions are so treacherous, it will take a miracle just to find the missing submarine, let alone rescue it, before its dwindling oxygen supply runs out tomorrow. Okay, so it's supposed to run out tomorrow. I don't know what time tomorrow. Okay, here's the timeline. 7 p.m., British billionaire Hamish Harding posts on Twitter and Instagram that he is joining OceanGate expedition dive on Titan submersible to Titanic shipwreck. Sunday, 1 p.m., Titan submersible begins dive to the wreck, launching from support ship the Polar Prince, about 435 miles south of St. John's, Newfoundland, Canada. 2:45 p.m., vessel loses contact with the surface an hour and 45 minutes into a normally 2.5-hour dive to the bottom where the Titanic lies. Wow. Okay. So that's what I was really curious about. I was curious how long this expedition was supposed to be. Looks like it was only supposed to last 2.5 hours. Wow. Titan should communicate with the crew on the surface via text messages. Titan sends last distress signal. Alert raised with U.S. Coast Guard. Oh, it's called the Titan. So the submersible is called the Titan, if anyone was confused about that. Okay, Monday, 2 a.m., Joint Rescue Coordination Center in Halifax, responsible for Canadian response, alerted by U.S. Coast Guard. OceanGate released statement confirming search operation is underway for submersible. U.S. Coast Guard said it launched a sweeping search approximately 900 miles east of Cape Cod, Massachusetts, while the Canadian Coast Guard is taking part in the effort with fixed-wing aircraft and a ship. On Monday evening, it is confirmed that Harding is on board the submersible. The search and rescue operation involving military aircraft 900 miles east of Cape Cod was continuing. The U.S. Coast Guard said the Canadian research vessel Polar Prince and 106 Rescue Wing will continue to conduct surface searches alongside two U.S. C-130 flights, UK-based businessmen and son confirmed on board. So there was, let's see, Royal Navy Rear Admiral Chris Perry likened the bottom to the Atlantic as being in space, saying it's utterly dark down there, and you have also got a lot of mud and other stuff getting swept up. You can see only about 20 feet in front of you with searchlights. There's very strong ocean currents which are pushing you along. If the mini sub has lost power with no working propellers, lights, or heating, its 5 passengers will be in total darkness and temperatures around 37 degrees Fahrenheit as the doomed craft rolls along the seabed. Oceanographer and Titanic expert David Gallo said, "Where is it? It's on the bottom." Oh, where is it? Is it on the bottom? Is it floating? Is it mid-water? That is something that has not been determined yet. The water is very deep, 2 miles plus. It's like a visit to another planet. It is a sunless, cold environment with high pressure. Oh, gosh. It sounded like that guy knew it, imploded at a certain depth. It almost seems like that's what would have happened. I have another article right here saying that that CEO was actually warned that this was dangerous. So let's see what that one says. Expert in submersible vehicles wrote a letter. Wow. Okay. Experts in submersible vehicles wrote a letter warning that the CEO of OceanGate that their approach could end in disaster years before the vessel vanished. The company's craft, the Titan, is currently missing with 5 people on board after it lost communication during a dive to the Titanic's wreckage. A frantic search and rescue operation is underway to locate and recover the submersible before its 96-hour oxygen supply runs out. Leaders in the submersible industry sent a letter to OceanGate CEO Stockton Rush, who is currently missing, along with the vessel, urging him to take caution. The letter, obtained by New York Times, warned that the current experimental approach of the company could result in problems from minor to catastrophic. Okay, it was sent by the Manned Underwater Vehicles Committee of the Marine Technology Society, a 60-year-old trade group that aims to promote ocean technology and educate the public about it. But it is unclear if any employees or Rush himself responded to the letter, and there was no further detail on why the approach was considered dangerous. Officials searching for the missing sub have warned that they may not be able to rescue the missing tourist sub even if they find it. Among those taking part in the expedition is billionaire Hamish Harding, CEO of Action Aviation in Dubai, and Shahzada Dawood, 48, a UK-based board member of the Prince's Trust charity, and his son, Solomon Dawood, 19. Rush is also understood to be on board the vessel, which vanished on Sunday, along with French Navy veteran P.H. Nargolet. I don't know what that says. Right. Oh, the sub's oxygen supply is now at just 40 hours. Wow. It comes after DailyMail.com revealed that OceanGate refused to put their submersible through an independent inspection process. Wow. Okay, so the CEO of OceanGate refused to put their submersible through an independent inspection process and fired a director in 2018 after he asked for more rigorous safety tests. This is bad news. Bosses fired David Lockridge, who was the director of marine operations for the Titan project, after disagreeing with his demand for more rigorous safety checks on the submersible, including testing to prove its integrity. The company also opted against having the craft classed as an industry-wide practice whereby independent inspectors ensure vessels meet accepted technical standards. OceanGate, which charges up to $250,000 for the seat on the submersible, suggested that seeking classification could take years and it would be an ad hominem to rapid innovation. Yeah. In 2019, the firm added that seeking classification for Titan would not ensure that operators adhere to proper operating procedures and decision-making processes, 2 years after much more important mitigating risks at sea. Yikes. Classification involves recruiting an independent organization to ensure vessels like ships and submersibles meet industry-wide technical standards. It is a crucial way of ensuring vessel is fit to operate. The Manned Underwater Vehicles Committee of the Marine Technology Society said in a statement about the tragedy. Wow. Okay, let me read that again. I'm sorry. The Manned Underwater Vehicles Committee of the Marine Technology Society, in a statement about the tragedy, that the modern commercial submarine industry is regulated in accordance with the international safety standards through classification societies. They added, these organizations have rules and safety standards for the design and construction of systems ranging from submersible vehicles to super tankers and oil platforms. Okay, so it looks like he didn't want to get it classified because, I mean, that's what I'm gathering. That's what it sounds like to me. He just wanted to rush through the completion and start his operation. He didn't want to classify it or be caught up in regulations. So they didn't do a safety inspection because of why? Probably because he just wanted to, well, you heard him. He wanted to, he didn't want to stop innovation. I don't know. You could kind of, I mean, I don't want to, pardon my drive. That is a wild story. And one of those guys, I think it was the Harding, he actually went up into space with Bezos. So he traveled up in space. And then the same guy was on this submersible. Let's see if there's any updates. Yeah, 250K per passenger. You had 3 passengers. That's $750,000 for 2.5 hours. Well, I mean, obviously he built the thing, so, but I don't. Oof. I'm just looking to see. Whenever we talk about this stuff, I always see if there's like any instant updates. Nope, nothing yet. And that's the thing too. Like, it's so hard to get that far down in the ocean, and it's so dangerous that they were saying, you know, that's what they were saying, how even if you find it, they might not be able to rescue or recover it. You want to know something else that nobody's really talking about? Did you know that the Titanic is essentially disappearing? There's a metal-eating bacteria that's essentially just like eating it, so it won't even be there in a little while. And that's what's a little another thing that's worrisome about all of these like submersibles and stuff going down there around the wreckage is if they do like bump it or accidentally touch something, you could cause a lot of damage. Because it's disappearing. It's being eaten away. It will be one with the ocean very soon. Crazy. Yeah, he wanted that cash. Well, here's interesting story number 2 today. So we've talked about a lot of these protests that are happening in Paris. We've talked about those before. Well, there was a different kind of protest in Paris today, and it wasn't the usual suspects this time. I'm going to show you what happened, and you tell me. So it kind of looks like, remember Occupy Wall Street, when all the occupiers would set up their tents and they would do like a sleep in? Well, that's what happened in Paris today, but it was actually with migrants that were demanding shelter. So here they are. That's sad. It is sad that it's fading away. I guess it's kind of the natural process of life. And it's just like, it's sand down there. That's another reason why it's a little upsetting that people just go and pay to tour it. Just leave it alone. Okay, this is Paris. So this is a square in Paris today. There were 450 migrants protesting, demanding shelter and more resources from the Big Daddy government, and 20 of them were detained. And you will see in this video that people are handing them tents to get out very quickly, and they're all kind of the same tent. So you can tell this was very much planned, and they're very much being helped. You'll see in this video, they're very much being helped by NGOs. See, look, they're either getting them out really quickly. And you'll see these ladies, those are NGOs. They're handing them the tents and they're helping to get them out really quickly. So I saw this clip. I saw this video clip and was trying to pursue it to make sure this actually was today. Because sometimes you'll see clips like this going viral, and it's something that happened maybe a few years ago. But I did find some news today about it, and that's how I know that people were detained and how many were there protesting. But this has actually happened before in Paris, very similar, where they'll protest by pulling out tents, very Occupy Wall Street style. There's also a lot of stories. Yeah, if you look the past probably like 3 or 4 years in France, you'll find tons of these protests by migrants. And I even found, so this is April 5th of 2023. Where is it? Okay, April 5th, 2023. This was The Guardian. I'll take this away. Okay, yeah, The Guardian. And it says, young migrants take over Paris building and protest at treatment. Young people had been sleeping rough across city after being rejected as minors by French authorities. This is really interesting. So they're protesting being rejected as minors. And this happens in the US. I don't know exactly how much it happens, but it definitely happens. So if you present as a minor, you're more likely to have your asylum claim be accepted. You're also more likely to get services. You're going to get more services if you present as under 18. So if you read that story further, that's exactly what happened with those men or boys, whatever they are, is that they attempted to present as younger than 18 years old, and through the vetting process, they found, and I don't know how they determined they were over 18, if they found their identity, but through the authorization process, they were deemed to be adults. So they were not accepted as asylum seekers as minors. Oh, so they're protesting because they are protesting for free shelter. And I'll get into why that's a really big thing in Paris. 1 second. Police were attempting to forcibly disperse a migrant rights protest. Okay. 450 migrants reportedly set up tents at the site around 2000 to demand that authorities provide them with adequate shelter. Police have arrested more than 20 people and engaged in low-level clashes. This story in The Guardian, more than 180 homeless young migrants have taken over a disused nursery school building of the west of Paris to protest the inhumane treatment of unaccompanied minors arriving in France from Africa. Backed by 3 French charities, the young people who had been sleeping across Paris for months arrived overnight at the old school building, which has no running water or electricity, and slept under blankets. They all identified as under 18, but had not been accepted as minors during evaluations by French local authorities. All have appealed that decision through lawyers, but the process can take as long as a year, during which time they have not been given housing. Being officially accepted as a minor means having access to shelter and support services. So this does happen. Now, I obviously don't know these specific cases, but this happens a lot. This happens in the US, where you have people that are over 18 who are presenting as minors because they're more likely to be accepted and given resources. I actually, when I worked for the state of Virginia way back in the day, we had someone come in who presented as a minor. He was an illegal immigrant from Mexico, and we thought he was under 18. But he had no papers. So all we could do is go on his word. Come to find, we actually started getting papers on him after he was in our care for a while, and we had reason to believe that he was over 18. And there's a reason they do this. I don't know how much they do this. I don't know how frequent it is, but you have a lot of, and if you looked at that footage from the square in Paris, they were all young looking men, like war-aged men. And the same, so essentially what's happening in Paris is you're having all of these men come over, their asylum claims are not being met, and then they're here appealing it. And while they're here appealing it, they are just homeless. They have nowhere to go. They're in limbo. And then they get angry because they are being promised that they were going to get accepted. And you see they're being pushed along the way by NGOs that are probably saying things in their ear, and then they're not getting what they think that they're going to be getting. And just think about how scary that is for our kids. There was a story just yesterday. I didn't even mean to make this connection. There is a story. Shoot, where did I see it? I want to say it was on the Daily Wire. I don't even, why was I on the Daily Wire? Oh, wait, I have a number for you. Hold on, before we move on. Most had been sleeping rough under bridges in Paris, constantly moved by police. A Senate report in 2021 found that we have a number, people. 55% of young migrants who present themselves to French authorities as unaccompanied minors are evaluated and not considered under 18. So they don't get services and they don't want to go home. And what happens to a lot of them is they threw their IDs over at the border. So now they don't have documentation. Oh, okay. Let's see what this lady says. I think this is an NGO. I'm very curious into inside the mind of the NGOs. Nikolai Posner of the organization Utopia 56, how fitting, which helps young migrants, said young people awaiting an appeal were not being housed. It is very hard for them to survive on the streets where they quickly face issues of crime, trafficking, and constant police pressure as they are regularly moved on or their tents destroyed. Well, who probably encouraged them to come? He said, when a group of 5 to 10 young people gather to sleep rough in an area of Paris, police dismantle their tents. This is increasing as the Paris 2024 Olympic Games approach, where the young people appeal their cases. They are simply left homeless. The state's approach is to be dissuasive. In the UK, they try to dissuade people with the threat of sending them back to Rwanda, where they try to dissuade people by leaving them on the street and hoping they get the message. If you come here, you won't be welcomed. Interesting. Well, there's that. Wait, here's the story I was trying to find yesterday. I heard from the lotus eaters and illegal migrant babies. Yeah, that was in France. That was in the French Alps. So I don't know if you all saw that. It was a really traumatizing video of it turned out to be a migrant man chasing a mother and a baby in a park and causing harm to the baby, if you know what I mean, and others. That was in the French Alps, people. That was Annex, I think. That was in the French Alps. So it is a big problem. And actually, I don't even want to say that because I don't know. I heard he might have gotten his claim denied and he was upset, but that is rumor. So please do not use that as fact. I just heard that somewhere. But this is what really worries me is now you have a bunch of men that are homeless roaming around. They have no jobs, they have nothing to do, and they're upset because their asylum claims are not getting met and they're angry. And what are they probably going to do? So it's a bad situation. And these, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, these NGOs are perpetuating the problem. And they have there's a lot of blame to go around, but some of it is them. Let me find this story. And here, this is what I don't understand too. What I don't understand about some of these charities and NGOs, if you're working, maybe it's money motivated. Maybe I don't know what the motivation is, because if you are working that close with the issue, you know the truth. You know the truth of who's coming or why they're coming, the demographics. You know the truth. You have to, right? If you're that close to it. The Daily Wire. Okay, here, this is 5 days ago. The Daily Wire. 28-year-old illegal immigrant arrested after posing as a teenager to attend high school. Oh, this is a woman, actually. An NGO is a non-government organization. So they're not affiliated with the government, technically. Some of them get funding from the government, but they're non-government entities, essentially. So like charities, like all kinds of people. A 28-year-old woman from Honduras who illegally entered the U.S. attended a Louisiana high school for an entire academic year using fake documents to pose as a 17-year-old, said the St. Charles Parish Sheriff on Wednesday. In the fall of 2021, Martha Serrano came to the U.S. to live with her mother, Marta, who was residing in the country on an expired visa. Serrano Alvarado allegedly used a fake passport and birth certificate to enroll in high school. So her 46-year-old mother enrolled her in the high school. 28. We were provided basically with a birth certificate from the country of Honduras, which indicated that the student in question was 17 years old. The school system had done a preliminary investigation, and they had determined literally with a day and a half of receiving the tip that, in fact, the student was overage, and determined that it was quite likely that the birth certificate was counterfeit. The school district opened an internal investigation 4 days after the end of the school year upon receiving a tip that the 17-year-old female student might actually be in her mid-20s. Champagne said he saw a photograph of the 28-year-old woman taken by a U.S. government before she was released into the country, and said she could very easily be taken for a teenager. And that's the thing. If you look young, how would you know? Hello, Sir TDS. She attended the school for the entire 2022-2023 year to learn English. According to the sheriff, I think they told her she attended to learn English. She was in school. She minded her own business. She did her schoolwork. She caused no trouble. She just wanted to learn English. I don't care. I don't care. They're kids. I don't care. They're more important. The kids are more important. I don't care if she kept to herself. I don't care. I don't care. I don't care. It's so unbelievably wrong and weird and twisted. And unfortunately, you're going to start seeing a lot of just odd stuff like this. You're going to see a lot more just strange stuff that doesn't make sense to us because we come from different cultures. We have different customs. We have different things that are acceptable and that are not acceptable. And I'm not saying that to be mean. I'm just saying when you take a bunch of people and just put them in your country, you're going to have odd things like this happen. And it's going to happen a lot. Unfortunately, whether it was her decision or her mother's decision is certainly bad judgment to submit a falsified document to the government. The school district said in a statement that it will enhance the process to determine authenticity of enrollment documents for current and future students, as well as modify policies and procedures warranted. So it happens. And in this case, what's the problem? I'm sorry, I just wanted to learn English. I was minding my own business. No, I don't care. Anyway. I thought this clip on CNN was really funny. I apologize. It's a phone recording again. There's a lot of morally and financially corrupt organizations out there. Absolutely. So many morally corrupt, wealthy organizations. Yeah, I watched. I think we talked about it on this channel before. I showed you a clip, but I watched this really fascinating lecture from a professor at a university, and I don't remember what university it was, but this lecture was about 7 years ago, so it's probably when you could actually talk about these things a lot more open without being canceled or called a bigot. You could actually have common sense, immigration discussions in college. But he was talking about mass migration. And the question is, and this is the question that I always ask too. This is why I'm always curious to hear from these NGOs or people on the other side of this. I'm really curious, not on the big government level, not on the big organization level. Obviously, they're going to propaganda you, but I'm talking about on the human to human level. Like, I want to talk to one of those girls that was handing one of the migrants a tent. I want to talk to those people. And I'm so curious to know what their motivations are, because you only have to look into this issue for 5 minutes to see that it's not right. But anyway, this lecture my question was always, okay, we know that this mass migration and this type does not help the countries that people are going to. And we know that in a lot of cases, it actually doesn't help the countries that people are coming from. For instance, one country that's making a huge comeback is El Salvador. Well, the president of El Salvador did an interview with Tucker Carlson 2 years back and asked him about this migration. Sorry about that. Tucker asked him about this migration issue and how it affects his country, especially now that he's trying to turn it around. And he says, I understand why people want a better life. He goes, for a long time, it was very dangerous in our country. We didn't have any economy. There were no jobs. He said, but now, we're getting the crime under control. Now we're starting to build back our economy. And when our working class leaves, that really hurts us. And that's who more often than not you will see the people that are coming over. So a big misconception is that, what does it say on the Statue of Liberty? Give us you're sick, you're cold, you're hungry, all of that. And a big misconception is that we're helping the world's poor, right? We're helping poor. We're helping people, escaping climate. We're helping all of those things. But are we helping the poor? Because if you look at the people that are typically coming over, they're usually they're healthy aged. They're pretty healthy looking. They're your working class. So the poorest of the poor, the weakest of the weak, The most vulnerable of the vulnerable are being left in these countries that we're being told are so scary and dangerous that all these people have to come. And I'm not saying they're not, but what I am saying is that you now have your war-aged men, your working class, your protectors. When you're middle-aged people, when I say middle-aged, I mean like 20s up to like what, 60s, 70s? I don't know how old you go, but not maybe 60s, maybe 50s. I still think 60 is really young, but you're supposed to take care. You're supposed to go to work to kind of take care. You take care of your elderly and your young. And when your working class is leaving and they're leaving behind the elderly and the young and the sick, how is that helping the countries that they're coming from? Your working class is leaving. Your people that would be able to rebuild your country, your people that would be able to fix your country and help everyone, they're leaving and coming here for free shit. That's what they're doing. So I'm sorry, I could talk about this for hours and I could go off on 500,000 different tangents. But essentially that's what this professor was saying. He said, of the world's poorest, you have 1.9 billion people that live under $3.20 a day. None of those people are the ones coming over the border. They're too sick, they're too poor, they're too disconnected. They don't have thousands of dollars to pay a smuggler to come over the border. So you have people that just want some free goodies, and then they get here and sometimes they don't get all those goodies, and then they get angry. And then who wins? And then they're sleeping on the streets in Paris, or they're getting drunk in a hotel in New York City. Or they're enrolling themselves in high school at 28 years old to learn English. I'm pretty sure there are programs that provide English training. But again, this is what happens when you have our border that's so overrun. They're not even having the time to explain resources that could be available. I used to work for the government on a state level and a city level. They have so many resources that can teach you English if you want to learn English that are free. Anyway. Yeah, immigration should be in the tens of thousands, but not in the hundreds of thousands. Exactly. And definitely not in the millions. It was funny because that same professor who was giving that talk, I think that talk was about 7 years ago. And he was saying how absolutely devastating it would be, that it would completely just upend the country if we let in even 2 million people a year. And we're like, what? What are we going on per year now? 5 million, 6 million? It's insane. And things are going to get a lot more chaotic because you're importing people, again, that have completely different customs than we do. Oh, per day. 1 million per day. Oh, yeah. Actually, you know what's really cute? I've heard a lot of people from other countries, like friends of mine that I've met when I was living in Los Angeles that grew up in other countries. They actually learned English by watching English shows on TV. That's how they learned how to speak English, just watching English shows on TV. I remember one person saying, I can't remember if this was actually someone I personally talked to or I saw this somewhere and it just stuck out in my head because it's kind of funny. One, I heard a person say that they learned English from watching Baywatch. And if you remember, like way back in the day, Baywatch was the biggest show. It was a huge international success. Huge. Everybody wanted to live in California. All right, everyone, that's all I had for you today. Thank you so much for joining and watching. I'll be back more this week. I'll announce before I'm back, before I do a live stream. But thank you very much, and you all have a great night. On a related matter, if Taiwan and Ukraine fall, the refugee crisis will exacerbate the border crisis in the U.S. and Europe. Oh, yeah. All right, bye, everyone. I'll see you later. You guys have a great night. Don't eat too many tacos. No time is a good time for a stream. All right, I'll see you all later. My throat is dry tonight. Oh, thank you so much. All right, you guys.